All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about one of the greatest wonders of the ancient world, the Great Pyramid of Giza. Seriously, just look at it. It's an absolute marvel. And for thousands of years, it's held a secret that has truly puzzled humanity. Today, we're going to crack it. I mean, the scale is it's mind-boggling, right? For almost 4,000 years, this was the tallest thing on the entire planet built by human hands. And when you're dealing with something that incredible, well, you're going to get some pretty wild theories about how it was all put together. So let's just clear the air right now. No, it wasn't built by aliens, and nope, it doesn't have magical powers. I know, it's a fun idea, you see it in movies all the time, but honestly, the real story, that it was built by actual people, is way, way more impressive. And here's another big one we gotta tackle, thanks mostly to Hollywood. You know the picture, thousands of slaves dragging these huge stones under a blazing sun? Yeah, that's just not what happened. The real evidence tells a completely different story. These were skilled, paid workers. They were organized, and get this, they were well fed. Okay, so if it wasn't aliens or slaves, what about the big ramp? This is the theory we all kind of grew up with, right? A giant ramp snaking up the side. But there's a fatal flaw. For that ramp to not be ridiculously steep, it would have to stretch out for a mile. Think about that. And then, where did all the material for the ramp go? It couldn't just vanish into thin air. There's no trace of it. So, okay, no aliens, no slaves, no giant disappearing ramp. What's left? Well, the truth is, the Great Pyramid didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was the final product, the masterpiece, that came after centuries of practice and a lot of trial and error. And that whole journey starts right here with this, the mastaba. It's basically a rectangular tomb with a flat roof. Kind of looks like a bench, which is actually what the name means in Arabic. Simple, yeah, but super important. This was the blueprint, the starting point for everything that came next. And you can literally see the evolution happening. First, this genius architect named Imhotep has a brilliant idea. What if we stack these mastabas on top of each other? Boom, the step pyramid. Then they try to make a smooth one, but oops, that first attempt at medium was a disaster. Then comes the bent pyramid. They're building away and realize, oh no, the angle is too steep, it's going to collapse. So they have to change it halfway up, that's why it's bent. But all these failures were just lessons, and finally they get it right with the red pyramid, the very first successful, true pyramid. See? So when King Khufu decides he wants a pyramid, his architect, this guy named Hemienu, isn't just starting from scratch. He's got a whole playbook of what works and, just as importantly, what doesn't work. He was standing on the shoulders of giants. And Hemienu's plan was, well, it was nothing short of genius. His very first move? Location, location, location. He picked the Giza Plateau. Why? Because the stone he needed for most of the pyramid was right there. He was basically building the pyramid inside its own quarry. That one decision saved them an incredible amount of work and years of time.
Now let's just try to wrap our heads around the numbers here, because they are insane. 2.3 million stone blocks, and each one, on average, weighed 2.5 tons. That's like a big SUV. So imagine lifting and perfectly placing 2.3 million SUVs. Yeah, staggering.
So who's doing all this work? A whole city of people. We're talking about a dedicated workforce of around 25,000. And it wasn't just guys hauling stone. It was a whole ecosystem. You had bakers making bread, brewers making beer, doctors patching people up, an entire city built for one single purpose. Oh, and the deadline? Just 20 years. For the whole thing. If you run the numbers on that, it means a new 2.5-ton block had to be quarried, moved, and set perfectly in place every 3 minutes. Every 3 minutes. 10 hours a day, every single day for 2 decades straight. The level of efficiency is just mind-blowing. And this wasn't just about the local stone. Hemienu was a master of supply chain management. He was sourcing different stones from all over. You had the local limestone for the inner core. Then from Tura, he brought in this beautiful white limestone for that smooth, shiny outer layer. And for the really important stuff, like the king's burial chamber, he used super hard granite that had to be shipped from Aswan. That's 500 miles away. Okay, so the planning is brilliant, the workforce is massive, but we're still stuck on the biggest question of all. How in the world did they get those millions of blocks all the way to the top? And we've already seen that external ramps just don't work. The straight one is too big. And if you try to wrap a ramp around the outside, you run into another huge problem. You can't see the corners. And if you can't see the corners, how do you make sure they all meet up perfectly at a single point at the top? It's an engineering nightmare. This is where a French architect named Jean-Pierre Houdin comes in. He spent years, not digging in the sand, but at his computer using high-tech 3D modeling software to basically rebuild the pyramid block by block. And after all that work, he realized something revolutionary. Everyone had been looking in the wrong place. The secret wasn't on the outside, it was on the inside.
This is his theory, the internal ramp theory, and it is just brilliant. Here's the idea. You start with a short external ramp, just for the bottom third of the pyramid. Easy enough. But then, as you go higher, you start building the ramp inside the pyramid itself, like a tunnel spiraling upwards just behind the outer walls. And those corners we were worried about? They left them open, like little notches, giving workers space to turn the giant blocks. The pyramid essentially built itself from the inside out.
And this changes everything. Suddenly, the Great Pyramid isn't just some monument to brute force. It becomes a masterpiece of smart, efficient engineering, a work of pure genius.
When you look at it this way, the pyramid is so much more than just a pile of stones. It's a monument to what the human mind can achieve. It's about vision, incredible planning, and what can happen when thousands of people come together to do something that seems absolutely impossible.
So what's the big takeaway for us? Well, it's a powerful reminder that sometimes, to solve the biggest, most impossible problems, you just have to change your perspective. You have to be willing to look at it from a completely new angle. In this case, literally from the inside out.
And the coolest part? That internal ramp? It's probably still in there, sealed up inside the walls for 4,500 years. And as modern tech finds new corridors and hidden chambers we never knew existed, it just leaves you with this one amazing thought. What other secrets are still waiting to be discovered inside the Great Pyramid?